is significant. It is responsible for a significant portion of antepartum hemorrhage. Placenta previa, what is that? It is defined as a situation or condition, clinical condition, where placenta implanted over the lower uterine segment, either covering the os or in the form of low lying. So it is a clinical condition where placenta is abnormally implanted over the lower uterine segment, and it contributes. What is the incidence rate? Almost 1 to 3%. Sometimes some developing countries there is increased incidence is there, that is 4-5% chances, and it also causes significant maternal morbidity and mortality. And we will discuss now about this placenta previa. So what are the theory behind this placenta previa? Why placenta is implanted in lower segment in spite of upper segment? Because normal placenta localization is in the upper segment or in the fundus, either anterior or posterior. So if placenta is located or placenta is localized in the lower uterine segment, that is abnormal. And some theories are there behind this implantation, abnormal implantation of the placenta. One is, most popular, is the dropped down theory. That means fertilized ovum, when implanted into the uterine cavity, instead of getting implantation over the fundus or upper uterine wall, it becomes implanted into the lower uterine segment, drop down theory, because of poor decidual reaction or improper trophoblastic function. There are maybe some immunological factors which causes lower down implantation of the placenta of the fertilized ovum, and thereby there is formation of the placenta in the lower segment. And another is the excessive chorionic reaction, chorionicity. Excessive chorionicity sometimes is responsible for low-lying implantation of the placenta. That is also important. And other factors are the excessive placental size. In certain obstetric conditions where the placental size becomes large, sometimes huge placental surface area is there, particularly in case of twin pregnancy, multiple gestation, there is abnormal placentation, and placenta encroaches from the upper segment to the lower segment, even covering the os, particularly in twin pregnancy, multiple pregnancy. So in that cases, there is lower implantation of the placenta. Now, what are the etiological factors? There are several unexplained factors are there, but some known positive factors or etiological factors are responsible for this placenta previa. What are those? First and foremost is the age, advanced age of the mother, elderly mother. Number two is the parity and gravida. Multigravida or multiparity itself is a high risk factor for this placenta previa. Others are certain personal habit or personal behavior, like smoking, caffeine intake of excessive smoking, caffeine intake, alcohol intake. These are also may implicate in low implantation of the placenta. And other factors are some nutritional deficiency, particularly the folic acid deficiency, may cause this placenta previa. And there are some established cause of the placenta previa which are very much frequent. That is repeated D&C, scarred uterus, previous cesarean section, previous history of myomectomy. That is, myomectomy scar is there in the uterus. The previous scarred uterus also a important cause of this clinical entity. That is, previous repeatedly D&E operation or curettage operation if there is history of myomectomy, history of previous cesarean section, so there is increased incidence. Another factor is the ART, artificial reproductive technique. Here, when we do the embryo transfer, sometimes the fertilized ovum get transplanted into the lower uterine segment. ART is a very known and also established factor, high risk factor for development of the placenta previa. So these are the etiological factors. Now, what will happen to the patient? How the patient will present in cases of placenta previa? What is the clinical manifestation? No, before I that, I will discuss about the variety of the placenta previa. As per placental localization, there are two theories. One is older theory, older classification, and another newer classification as per location of the placenta in cases of placenta previa. As per previous classification, the placenta previa is classified as, that is type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. Type 1 is the low-lying placenta. That is placenta situated in the lower uterine segment. And type, it does not encroach up to the internal os. And that is low-lying. Type 2 is the marginal. That is placenta is located or situated over the lower uterine segment, and its margin reaches the margin of the internal os, but not covering. So this is the marginal placenta. Low lying, then marginal. That is not covering the os, but it touches the internal os. Type 2. This is type 2. And type 3 is the placenta partially covering the internal os, not completely covered. So this is incomplete or partial placenta previa. And the complete placenta previa is the placenta, the full thickness of the placenta, that is almost 2.5 to 3 centimeter thickness of the placenta, is overlying the internal os, completely covering the os. So this is the complete placenta previa. But newer classification is very simple. In that case, we have classified into low-lying and the true placenta previa. Low-lying placenta previa means the placenta located over the lower uterine segment, but within the 2 centimeter of the internal os. But in cases of placenta previa, the true placenta previa, placenta overlies the internal os. So in newer classification, there are two varieties, that is low-lying placenta and the true placenta previa. Low-lying placenta means the placenta is located within 2 centimeters of the internal os, that is low-lying, and that is the mild variety. And the true placenta previa, that is placenta completely, placenta covering the internal os, either partially or completely. So this is the newer classification. Now, what are the clinical manifestations of placenta previa? The placenta previa, what are the theory behind this placenta previa? The theory is the disproportionate, because most of the placenta previa, if it implanted those lower uterine segment before 17 weeks, by USG, USG, we have seen that the placenta gradually moves upwards or gradually takes its normal position, that is upper segment of fundus, when the pregnancy or gestational age advances. And almost in term pregnancy, it has been seen 10% cases persist in the lower uterine segment. Mostly, it gradually takes its normal position. But this migration of placenta is misnomer. Lower formation of lower uterine segment, as the pregnancy advances, the placenta gradually moves upwards, because placental growth, disproportionate growth of the placenta, or disproportionate increased size of the placenta, disproportionate growth between the placenta size and the lower uterine size is there. So there by this the placenta gradually moves upwards, apparent movement, that is the placental migration. And another factor is the trophotrophism, that is trophoblastic proliferation and trophoblastic activity. There that may cause trophoblastic proliferation towards the upper segment, and fundus that may also cause gradual shifting of the placenta to the fundus or upper segment. And for this reason, almost in term or near term, the placenta becomes almost normal when the placenta was initially implanted over the lower uterine segment. So this is the placental migration. Next is the clinical presentation. We have already learned that the antietam hemorrhage mostly occurs after 28 weeks of gestation. So any bleeding after 28 weeks of gestation is considered to be placenta previa unless proved otherwise. Any source of bleeding after 20 weeks of pregnancy, before childbirth, to be considered as placenta previa unless proved otherwise. And it has been seen that some group of patients may become asymptomatic throughout pregnancy, and first manifestation may occur just before starting of labor. And some patients may present recurrent bleeding. That bleeding is very characteristic. That is apparently causeless, painless, apparently causeless, face recurrent bleeding. It is the symptom triad, that is apparently causeless, painless, apparently causeless, face recurrent bleeding, and the bleeding is from second. Am I audible, students?
Yes, sir. Now, but কিছুক্ষণ আগে ছিলেন না, sir.
So I start now. So I was there in clinical presentation of the placenta previa. What are the findings? So I have already told you the placenta previa classical symptoms, that is sudden onset, apparently causeless, painless, and recurrent bleeding. And sometimes this hemorrhage occurs suddenly. Patient gets out with and find that the patient is in pool of blood in bed. So this is so painless and so apparently causeless, and that is why it may produce dangerous maternal and fetal complications. So this is the most important finding. Another finding is the abdominal examination. We can get the malpresentation mostly and non-engagement of the fetal parts, because low-lying placenta causes improper enlargement of the lower uterine segment, and thereby the malpresentation that is breast presentation, transverse lie. These are very common in cases of placenta previa, and there is improper lower uterine segment. So, if the patient goes in labor due to malpresentation and non-engagement of the head or fetal parts, there is increased chances of cord prolapse. Cord prolapse after premature rupture of membrane, and premature rupture of membrane is also very common here. So these are the clinical evidences, clinical symptoms, and we confirm the diagnosis by doing ultrasonography. And to more elaborately to know the placental situation, placental localization, and placental degree of attachment, we can do the 3D ultrasonography, three-dimensional USG or MRI, to rule out the placenta accreta, placenta parcita, or placenta increta. Placenta accreta, placenta increta, and placenta parcita. So what are these conditions? These are the morbid adhesion of the placenta with the uterine wall. Particularly, we have seen this scenario in cases of scarred uterus, when the uterus is very scarry due to previous DNA operation, previous mammectomy operation, previous cesarean section. In this scarred condition of the uterus, if there is placenta previa, the placenta firmly, morbidly adherent with the not only the decidua directly over the myometrium, and the decidua basalis becomes absent. In that case, placenta sometimes retained there, and if it gets attached with the myometrium, this is called placenta accreta. If it is invade the full muscular layer, that is placenta increta, sometimes it invades the placental myometrium and invades the serosal core and involves the bladder anteriorly. In that case, that is called the placenta parcita. Full thickness of the uterine wall is penetrated by this placental tissue, trophoblastic tissue. In that case, it is called the placenta parcita. Very dangerous situation in real clinical scenario. So these are the varieties USC finding, and the better delineation can be done regarding the degree of adhesion of this placenta by MRI. We can do also MRI. So these are the, and patient suddenly, when the patient complains of bleeding PV suddenly and profusely, we do, if we suspect antepartum hemorrhage due to placenta previa, until and unless we are getting confirmation from the ultrasonography or radiology. So this is the clinical features. Now, how will you manage the patient? This is a clinical dilemma regarding management point of view, because in one side there is a maternal morbidity and mortality and maternal life-threatening situation, and another side is there is fetal prematurity, because sometimes we have seen that this APH can endanger the life of the mother even before the period of viability, particularly before the lung maturity, that is 34 weeks of gestation. So in that case, it is very crucial. It is very, we have to do a delicate balance between two life, maternal life and the fetal life, because fetal prematurity is there many cases. In that case, we have to take the delicate decision after proper counseling and arrangement of the proper setup, like neonatal resuscitative measures. At the same time, maternal complications to cope up, maternal hemorrhage, the blood transfusion setup, the cesarean section setup should get ready. So if the patient comes with this APH, we should consider this is a case of placenta previa. If it is not diagnosed. And if it is USG proof, we should do the total examination. And any cases of APAs, first we do advise for admission, because any patient of no patient of APA should be refused, and they should be get admitted immediately. And after admission, what we do? We should get resuscitative measures, urgent, and call for help. We first admit the patient, then we do call for help. Then what we will do? We will do management of ABC, that is airway, breathing, and circulation. We should do the double IV cannula, double IV channel for blood transfusion and volume replacement by crystalloids or colloids. And we do the blood grouping, cross matching, and urgent blood transfusion is required here. And immediate after maternal resuscitation, side by side patient counseling and counseling of the the same time, and if we and no patient of APA should not be allowed, particularly diagnosed case of placenta previa should not be allowed vaginal examination. Vaginal examination can only be done by double setup examination system. That is, everything get ready for cesarean section with facilities of blood transfusion, and in OT setup we do the vaginal examination to note the placental condition. Placenta is separated or not, or the bleeding condition. Because any sorts of vaginal examination can provoke the further bleeding. So not in normal vaginal examination or routine vaginal examination is not allowed. It is only allowed for where there is double setup system. So we can do then vaginal examination. So the patient is after admission, patient is resuscitated by all these measures: IV drip set, blood transfusion, cross matching, and at the same time routine blood investigation like routine blood, all coagulation profile, and at one ultrasonography we can do, and we can assess the maternal condition as well as fetal condition. And fetal condition to be assessed by abdominal examination as well as ultrasonography and electronic fetal monitoring like CTG. So if we next is the how would you deliver the patient? If after primary resuscitation bleeding stops, then management will be what, and if the bleeding continues, management will be another. And this management of delivery of the fetus is managed in two ways. And the patient to be when the one is expected management, another is the active management, active interference. So when we do the expected management after primary resuscitation, if the fetal well-being is good, if the maternal bleeding stops, if the maternal condition or hemodynamically stable, and if it is preterm less than 37 weeks, no bleeding is there, and the maternal hemodynamic is dynamic stable, then we can wait to mature the fetal lung, at least if particularly if it is less than 34 weeks. So we can do expected management in cases of some situation where there is pregnancy is less than 37 weeks, no active bleeding, not in labor, fetal condition is in good, maternal hemodynamically stable, we can wait for getting lung maturity of the baby. In that case, we give antenatal corticosteroids to attain the fetal lung maturity. What is those? One is betamethasone, another is the dexamethasone. So we give betamethasone or dexamethasone if in cases of and placenta previa when the baby is premature and but still in good condition by CTG or USG, and the maternal condition is stable, and we give the iodine and hematinics to increase the maternal hemoglobin level, and we do the routine maternal complete blood count to rule out the anemia or degree of to ascertain the degree of anemia, as well as other routine blood examination to be sent weekly so that we can assess the maternal general well-being. And this regime first proposed by McAfee and Johnson. So this is called McAfee regime because that is the expected management of the placenta previa. And another group is the active interventions or active interference. Where do you do that? When the placenta previa patient is in bleeding condition, when there is excessive profuse bleeding, or patient in labor, and the pregnancy is 37 weeks of gestation, more than 37 weeks of gestation, fetal non-reassuring fetal heart rate pattern by CTG, and patient is getting exsanguinated due to torrential huge bleeding of the mother. The most important indications for active interference or immediate delivery of the baby is the maternal impairment, maternal health impairment, that is excessive torrential bleeding of the mother, which is not controlled, and patient is not in labor and more than 37 weeks of gestation. So among all these factors, even the pregnancy is less than 37 weeks, we should consider immediate delivery by cesarean section. It is the excessive huge bleeding that may jeopardize the maternal life. So it is the maternal salvage to take out the baby. So this is the indications where we have to do the termination of pregnancy by cesarean section. And nowadays, it is very common to do terminate pregnancy by cesarean section, even in a low-lying placenta. Even in a low-lying placenta, cesarean section is done commonly. So this is the indications of cesarean sections. In what are the indications of vaginal delivery? In cases of low-lying placenta, if the maternal condition is good and fetal non-reassuring fetal heart rate pattern and cervix is unfavorable, we can, after proper counseling with close monitoring, we can allow the vaginal delivery in cases of low-lying placenta, where the placenta is within 2 centimeters of the os, but not covering it. But everything get ready for cesarean section, because when the labor starts, there is separation of the lower margin of the placenta and there may be huge bleeding. So we can allow, in that case, if the placenta is not covering the os, we can allow vaginal delivery by induction. If the placenta is not covering the os, at least 2 centimeters away and with close monitoring. But most of the cases, even low-lying placenta, consider cesarean sections. So this is the management portion of the placenta previa. But one thing important is the dangerous placenta previa, type 2 posterior. I have already told the type 1 and type 2. Type 2 is the marginal, and the marginal placenta can connection problem is there. Am I audible, dear?
Yes, sir.
So now the type 2 posterior is the danger placenta previa. Why? Because it causes impairment of the engagement. Because anterior posterior diameter will be reduced when the placenta, type 2 placenta is there, type 2 posterior placenta is there. Because
Sir, you are muted.
Sir, you are muted.
স্যার আপনি মিউট হয়ে গেছেন। হ্যালো স্যার।
mostly we have seen in placenta previa that occurs in mostly premature, but it has been seen it occurs mainly in near term or term pregnancy. And what are the varieties? Mostly three types of abruptio placentae are there. Placentas are there. One is revealed, one is concealed, another is mixed. Among these, mixed variety is very common, but here the concealed variety is predominant. Mixed means both revealed and mixed. So revealed, mixed, and the revealed, concealed, and mixed. Among these, the mixed variety is very common. But the patient usual presentation, what are the common presentation of in cases of abruptio placentae? I have already told you that in cases of placenta previa, there is painless, recurrent, and apparently causeless sudden onset bleeding. But here, there is painful. The bleeding pervaded in pregnancy with pain and tenderness of the uterus is very classical for abruptio. Sometimes it may be asymptomatic in cases of mild degree, but most of the cases there is painful, but bleeding is dark in spite of bright color in what we have seen in the placenta previa. Here is the bleeding is sometimes not so much profuse, but pain is there. Pain is there, and associated systemic features is very important. We have seen that the raised blood pressure, preeclamptic situation, twin, and the polyhydramnios. These are very common in cases of abruptio placentae. So, what are the risk factors for abruptio? We have seen there are several epidemiological risk factors are there. One is age, multi-gravity, multiparity, elderly. There are high risks for placenta previa, as well as some personal habits like smoking, alcohol consumption, caffeine intake also increases this risk. Sometimes we have seen that folic acid deficiency state is there, and the previous scarred uterus, previous history of abruptio placentae also is responsible factor for this. And what are the others established factors? Trauma and the excessive stressing of the uterus, which conditions which produce this, like polyhydramnios, twin pregnancy, or multiple gestation, and sometimes PROM in cases of artificial rupture of membranes, there can cause the abruptio placentae. So these are the risk factors for abruptio placentae. Now we will come about the management strategy. Before management, the diagnostic part to be covered. How can we diagnose the placenta, abruptio placentae or accidental hemorrhage? So diagnosis is mainly clinical by clinical background, clinical history, typical history, clinical features, and confirmatory by ultrasonography. So what will we do in clinical profile? We first, when the patient comes with bleeding per vagina, mostly at term or near term with pain and tender uterus and almost less fetal movement, complain of the mother is complaining of not perceiving fetal movement properly for last few days or few hours with pain abdomen and the bleeding PV, we suspect the abruptio placentae. So we get we should advise admission of the patient immediately, and we thorough examine the patient followed by ultrasonography for confirmation. And if we see that the bleeding is dark color, there is abdominal tenderness over the uterus, sometimes the fundal height is more than the period of amenorrhea, and the patient pulse blood pressure is pulse rate is high, blood pressure is gradually falling. Even sometimes we get the high blood pressure because of preeclamptic component is there, and patient is getting exsanguinated. There is less fetal movement, and in CTG we can see the non-reassuring fetal heart rate pattern. We suspect that there is abruptio placentae, and we first do resuscitative measures, but by giving blood transfusions and by giving intravenous crystalloids. So what we do that? Why we do that? Always patient you should advise the patient in indoor, and we do after resuscitative measures we go for termination of pregnancy, because pregnancy continuation or pregnancy conservative measurement is very rare. It is not the rule. We should always go for termination of pregnancy in case of abruptio placentae after primary resuscitation. So what do you do? You do the termination of pregnancy either by amniotomy and oxytocin induction or cesarean section. But cesarean section should not be tried fast. Cesarean section is absolute indication in abruptio placentae. What are those? If the fetus is live but mother is getting exsanguinated, severe degree of placenta abruption is there, and the cervix is unfavorable, amniotomy and the oxytocin cannot check the bleeding or labor process, cannot augment the labor process, and then we go for cesarean section. But if there is no severe degree of placenta previa, maternal conditions are not so worsening, we go for amniotomy and oxytocin induction, and it has some benefits because it can arrest the bleeding process in the retroplacental bleeding or abruptio process by increasing tone of the uterus, so that we can get the better tone of the uterus and accidental hemorrhage can be arrested. At the same time, liver process is augmented and we can deliver the baby safely. But in cases of severe degree of placenta previa or abruptio with unfavorable cervix and immediate delivery is where there is required, then we do for cesarean section. So what are the complications we can face regarding maternal complications? Apart from the hemorrhagic shock, there are multi-organ dysfunction may happen because the coagulopathy is very much associated with this entity. This coagulopathy may cause acute renal failure in form of acute tubular necrosis, subcapsular hemorrhage of the liver. There is cortical necrosis in and acute renal failure in the form of oliguria or anuria is there. So all these conditions may worsen the maternal conditions, even maternal death can occur. So multi-system dysfunction because of coagulopathy, disseminated intravascular coagulation is there, which can produce multi-organ dysfunction like hepatic failure, renal failure. And due to preeclampsia condition is there, there is severe cardiovascular. Hello. So, hello, hello, are you there? Everybody is there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We are in the last part. So what are the complications? I have already told you. Several maternal complications are there, like hemorrhagic shock. There is multi-system dysfunction and renal failure, particularly The cause of death is hemorrhagic shock and renal failure, and DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation, because excessive retroplacental hemorrhage can cause release of the tissue thromboplastin that may cause impairment in the coagulation factors, and coagulation failure is there manifested by decreased fibrinogen level and increased D-dimer level we have seen, and increased incidence of maternal morbidity in terms of renal failure, hemorrhagic shock, and the cerebrovascular accident, which may require in critical care admission, and the fetal complications like prematurity, birth asphyxia, they are very common, even intrauterine fetal death. So these are the very common complications we have encountered. So how can we avoid this? By increasing frequency of the antenatal care, or proper adequate antenatal care, early detection, and the proper management. And you should be very judicious regarding termination of pregnancy, because if you do the excess extra effort for induction of labor with maternal compromisation, there will be increased maternal loss. Maternal life will be threatened because of the rapid progression of the coagulopathy, and may cause multi-organ dysfunction and maternal death. So these are the very important point. So this is how from obstetric point of view, because it causes, I have already told you, extra maternal mortality and morbidity, in particular in our setup. So that's all for today. Thank you all. You take your own attendance, and I will come in the next class. Thank you everybody.